Picture this. December 2023. A commercial cargo ship slices through the dark waters of the Red Sea, carrying goods worth millions of dollars. The crew is relaxed, chatting over coffee, checking navigation systems. Suddenly, alarms blare. A missile streaks across the sky. Within seconds, an explosion rocks the vessel. Crew members scramble for life vests. The captain screams into the radio for help. This isn't a movie. This is real. And it happened over and over again in one of the world's most critical shipping lanes. Welcome to Operation Prosperity Guardian, America's bold response to one of the most significant maritime threats of our time. The Houthis, a rebel group from Yemen, declared war on global commerce, and the United States, along with international partners, said enough is enough. But here's what most people don't know. This operation isn't just about protecting ships. It's about defending the global economy, preventing a humanitarian catastrophe, and sending a clear message to those who would threaten freedom of navigation on the high seas. Let me take you back to where this all started. The Red Sea isn't just any body of water. It's one of the most strategically important waterways on Earth. About 12% of global trade passes through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, connecting the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. Think about that for a moment. 12%. That means electronics from Asia, oil from the Middle East, food supplies heading to Africa and Europe, all funneling through this narrow passage. It's a choke point, and choke points are vulnerable. The Houthis understood this vulnerability perfectly. Since taking control of large parts of Yemen in their ongoing civil war, they've built up a surprisingly sophisticated arsenal. We're talking anti-ship ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, explosive-laden drones, and even unmanned boats packed with explosives. Iran, their primary backer, provided much of this technology. And in late 2023, following the outbreak of the Israel-Gaza conflict, the Houthis found their excuse to unleash chaos. They claimed they were targeting ships linked to Israel, but the reality was far different. They attacked vessels from dozens of countries. Greek-owned ships, British-flagged vessels, American cargo carriers, even ships heading to Egypt with grain for hungry populations. The Houthis weren't being selective. They were creating terror on the seas, and the global shipping industry was paying attention. By mid-December 2023, major shipping companies were making a devastating decision. They started rerouting their vessels around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa. Let that sink in. Instead of a quick passage through the Suez Canal and Red Sea, ships were taking a detour that added thousands of miles, weeks of journey time, and millions of dollars in extra costs. Insurance premiums for Red Sea transit skyrocketed. Some companies refused to sail through the region at any price. The economic impact was staggering. The Suez Canal Authority reported a 40% drop in traffic. Egypt was losing hundreds of millions in revenue. European manufacturers faced delays in receiving parts from Asia. Prices for consumer goods began ticking upward. Energy costs threatened to spike. A regional conflict was becoming a global economic crisis, and the world needed someone to step up. Enter the United States Navy and Operation Prosperity Guardian. On December 18, 2023, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced the formation of this multinational security initiative. The mission was clear: protect commercial shipping in the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and the Gulf of Aden. Ensure freedom of navigation. Deter Houthi aggression. And if deterrence failed, respond with overwhelming force. But this wasn't going to be an American solo act. The United States assembled a coalition that eventually included the United Kingdom, Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles, and Spain. Other nations contributed in various ways, sharing intelligence or providing logistical support. Some countries participated quietly, not wanting to draw attention or provoke regional tensions. The operational picture was complex. The U.S. Navy deployed some of its most capable assets to the region. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, equipped with the Aegis combat system, became the backbone of the defense. These ships are marvels of modern naval warfare. They can track hundreds of targets simultaneously, engage multiple threats at once, and coordinate with aircraft and other vessels in real time. The USS Carney became one of the heroes of this operation. This destroyer shot down dozens of Houthi missiles and drones, protecting both itself and nearby commercial vessels. The crew worked grueling hours, often at battle stations for days at a time, eyes glued to screens, fingers ready on triggers. The stress was immense, but their performance was flawless. Aircraft carriers rotated through the region, providing air support and additional surveillance. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower spent months on station, its crew launching fighter jets and helicopters to patrol the skies and investigate suspicious vessels. Carrier life during this deployment was exhausting. Imagine living on a floating city, working 18-hour days, sleeping in cramped quarters, all while knowing that at any moment, you might need to scramble jets to intercept incoming threats. The technology being used in Operation Prosperity Guardian represents the cutting edge of military capability. The Aegis combat system, developed decades ago but constantly upgraded, proved its worth time and again. When a Houthi missile launches, radar systems detect it almost immediately. Computers calculate its trajectory, predict its target, and determine the best interception method. Within seconds, a decision is made. Fire a Standard Missile 2 or Standard Missile 6. These interceptors streak skyward at incredible speeds, their seekers locked onto the incoming threat. The explosion happens miles away, debris falling harmlessly into the sea. But here's something fascinating. Each interceptor missile costs between $2 and $5 million. Think about that. The Houthis launch relatively cheap drones and missiles, and the US Navy responds with multi-million-dollar interceptors. Some critics called it unsustainable. They asked how long America could afford to play this expensive game of defense. The Pentagon's answer was simple. The cost of not defending these ships, the cost of letting the global economy suffer, would be far greater. The Houthis adapted their tactics quickly. They started launching swarm attacks, sending multiple drones and missiles simultaneously from different directions. They used civilian vessels to get close to targets before attacking. They employed sophisticated timing to overwhelm defenses. But the coalition adapted too. Patrol patterns changed. Intelligence gathering intensified. Preemptive strikes began. This brings us to a controversial aspect of Operation Prosperity Guardian, the offensive operations. In January 2024, after the Houthis continued their attacks despite warnings, the United States and United Kingdom launched strikes against Houthi military targets inside Yemen. We're talking about radar installations, missile launch sites, weapons storage facilities, and command centers. Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from ships and submarines. Fighter jets dropped precision-guided bombs. The message was clear. If you attack shipping, we will degrade your ability to do so. The strikes were carefully calibrated to minimize civilian casualties, but they were controversial nonetheless. Some nations in the coalition expressed reservations. The Arab League condemned them. Yemen's humanitarian situation was already dire, and there were concerns that military action would make things worse. The US and UK argued that they were acting in self-defense and in defense of international shipping rights under international law. The legal framework for Operation Prosperity Guardian rests on several pillars. First, the right of self-defense under Article 51 of the UN Charter. When Houthis attack vessels, including warships, those vessels have the right to defend themselves. Second, the principle of freedom of navigation, a cornerstone of international maritime law. No nation or group has the right to arbitrarily threaten ships in international waters. Third, the defense of vital economic interests. The Red Sea route is so important to the global economy that its disruption constitutes a threat to international peace and security. But let's talk about the people behind this operation. The sailors and pilots risking their lives every day. I want you to imagine being a young sailor on a destroyer, standing watch in the Combat Information Center. It's 3 in the morning. You've been on duty for 6 hours already. Your eyes ache from staring at screens. Coffee keeps you going. Suddenly an alarm. Incoming missile. Your training kicks in. Calm voice reports to the bridge. Weapon systems activate. You watch the track on your screen. Your ship fires an interceptor. Seconds feel like hours. Then, the incoming missile disappears from the screen. Splash. You exhale. You just saved lives, maybe hundreds of lives on a cargo ship that will never know your name. These sailors go weeks without seeing their families. They miss birthdays, anniversaries, their children's first steps. The mental toll is enormous. Depression, anxiety, and relationship strain are constant challenges. The Navy provides counseling services, but nothing truly replaces being home. Yet they stay on station because they believe in the mission. They believe that protecting global commerce, standing up to aggression, is worth the sacrifice. The operation also involved intense intelligence work. The US and its partners monitored Houthi communications, tracked weapons shipments from Iran, identified launch sites, and predicted attack patterns. Satellites watched Yemen constantly. Spy planes flew surveillance missions. Cyber operations disrupted Houthi command and control networks. This was war in the 21st century, fought across multiple domains simultaneously. One of the most remarkable aspects of Operation Prosperity Guardian was the international cooperation it required. Naval vessels from different nations operated in close proximity, sharing radar data, coordinating patrol areas, and communicating constantly. French frigates worked alongside American destroyers. British support ships refueled coalition vessels. This level of cooperation doesn't happen by accident. It requires trust, interoperability, and shared commitment to a common goal. However, not all potential partners joined. Some nations, particularly in the Middle East, were hesitant to be seen as working too closely with the United States, fearing backlash from Iran or domestic opposition. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, despite having fought the Houthis in Yemen for years, kept their distance from the formal coalition. They provided some intelligence support, but avoided public association with the operation. The economic stakes continued to rise throughout 2024. Energy markets watched nervously as each attack occurred. Oil prices jumped whenever a major incident happened. European manufacturers lobbied their governments for action. The International Chamber of Shipping, representing 80% of the world's commercial fleet, praised Operation Prosperity Guardian, but called for even stronger measures. They wanted the Houthis eliminated as a threat entirely, not just contained. By mid-2024, the operation had achieved mixed results. Attacks continued, but at a lower intensity. Some shipping companies resumed Red Sea transits, encouraged by the coalition presence. Others remained cautious. The Houthis claimed they were undeterred, releasing propaganda videos showing their forces preparing new attacks. They portrayed themselves as defenders of Palestine, standing up to American imperialism. The narrative war was just as important as the physical one. The United States faced criticism from multiple angles. Progressive voices questioned the cost and legality of strikes inside Yemen. Conservative critics argued the response was too restrained, that the Houthis should be hit harder. Regional powers worried about escalation. Iran issued warnings, though it carefully avoided direct confrontation with American forces. Everyone was trying to calibrate their response to achieve their objectives without triggering a wider war. Let's talk about some specific incidents that define this operation. In January 2024, the Galaxy Leader, a cargo ship hijacked by the Houthis in November 2023, remained in Houthi hands. The crew, held captive, became pawns in a larger game. The international community demanded their release, but the Houthis used them as leverage, trying to extract concessions. It was a reminder that this wasn't just about missiles and drones. Real people were suffering. In February 2024, a Houthi attack damaged a British oil tanker, causing an oil spill in the Red Sea. Environmental concerns added another layer to the crisis. The Red Sea is home to some of the world's most pristine coral reefs and diverse marine life. An ecological disaster would have long-term consequences far beyond the immediate security situation. Coalition forces had to balance military operations with environmental protection, a challenging task in a combat zone. March 2024 brought intensified strikes against Houthi positions. American B-2 stealth bombers flew missions from the continental United States, striking deeply buried weapons facilities. These were bunker-busting operations designed to destroy stockpiles the Houthis had hidden underground. The use of strategic bombers sent a powerful message about American reach and determination. There is nowhere to hide from American military power when it decides to act. But here's what makes this conflict so modern and so complex. The Houthis were fighting an asymmetric war. They didn't need to win in any conventional sense. They just needed to make shipping through the Red Sea risky and expensive enough that companies chose alternate routes. They were succeeding in creating economic disruption, even when their attacks were intercepted. The psychological impact of the threat was almost as important as actual successful strikes. By summer 2024, the operational tempo remained high. American destroyers continued their patrols. More strikes hit Yemen. Diplomatic efforts intensified to find a political solution. The United Nations, the Arab League, and individual nations like Oman tried to mediate. The Houthis demanded an end to the war in Gaza and the lifting of sanctions. The international community demanded the Houthis stop attacking shipping immediately and unconditionally. No middle ground emerged. The human cost in Yemen remained catastrophic. Years of civil war had created one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Millions faced starvation. Disease was rampant. Infrastructure was destroyed. The strikes by the US and UK, even when carefully targeted, added to the suffering. Critics argued that military action would never solve Yemen's underlying problems, that only a comprehensive peace process could bring stability. Supporters of Operation Prosperity Guardian countered that allowing the Houthis to threaten global shipping with impunity would embolden them further, potentially worsening the humanitarian situation in the long run. They argued that strength and deterrence were necessary to create conditions for meaningful negotiations. It's the age-old debate between those who prioritize immediate peace and those who believe in peace through strength. As we moved into late 2024 and early 2025, the operation evolved. The coalition refined its tactics based on lessons learned. The Navy deployed newer weapons systems, including directed energy weapons and enhanced electronic warfare capabilities. These technologies offered the potential to intercept threats at lower cost per engagement, addressing the economic sustainability concerns. The Houthis, for their part, showed no signs of backing down. Their leaders gave defiant speeches. Their forces continued to train and prepare. Iran continued to provide support, though it carefully maintained plausible deniability. The regional dynamics remained tense, with everyone aware that one miscalculation could trigger a much larger conflict. Let me share something that doesn't get enough attention. The merchant mariners who continued to sail through these waters. These are civilian sailors, not military personnel. They're from the Philippines, India, Pakistan, Eastern Europe, and dozens of other countries. They signed up to transport cargo, not to dodge missiles. Yet thousands of them continued their work because global trade depends on them. They steered their massive ships through dangerous waters, watching the horizon nervously, trusting that coalition warships would protect them. These men and women are unsung heroes of this crisis. The insurance industry played a fascinating role in this saga. War risk insurance premiums for Red Sea transits increased tenfold in some cases. Insurance companies hired risk analysts to track every attack, every threat, constantly recalculating the danger level. They influenced shipping routes as much as any government policy. When premiums got too high, ships went around Africa. When coalition protection improved, premiums dropped slightly and more ships returned. The invisible hand of the market was shaping maritime traffic patterns in real time. Operation Prosperity Guardian also highlighted America's role as a global security provider. Like it or not, the United States Navy is the only force capable of organizing and leading such an operation. No other nation has the combination of naval power, global reach, intelligence capabilities, and diplomatic influence to coordinate a multinational response to a crisis like this. European nations contributed, but they lacked the scale and logistics to do this alone. This reality reinforces American global influence while also creating resentment in some quarters. The technological competition aspect of this conflict deserves more discussion. Iran has been developing and exporting missile and drone technology for years. The Houthis became a testing ground for Iranian weapons systems. Every attack provided Iran with valuable data about how these weapons perform against Western defenses. Similarly, the United States gained insights into the effectiveness of its defensive systems and refined its tactics. This was, in some ways, a proxy technology competition between America and Iran. By early 2025, the situation remained unresolved but more stable than in the initial chaotic months. Shipping traffic had partially recovered. The frequency of attacks had decreased, though they hadn't stopped. The coalition maintained its presence, and the United States showed no signs of withdrawing. The message was clear. America and its partners were committed for the long haul. There were moments of dark humor among the sailors involved. They joked about being the world's most expensive coast guard. They gave nicknames to particularly persistent Houthi drones. They celebrated successful intercepts with the same enthusiasm as sports victories. This humor was a coping mechanism, a way to deal with the stress and monotony punctuated by moments of terror that defined their deployment. Let's consider the broader strategic implications. Operation Prosperity Guardian is part of a larger pattern of challenges to the post-World War II international order. That order was built on principles like freedom of navigation, respect for international borders, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. But in recent years, we've seen those principles challenged repeatedly. Russia and Ukraine, China in the South China Sea, and now the Houthis in the Red Sea. Each challenge tests the willingness of the international community to defend these principles. The American response sends signals far beyond the Red Sea. It tells China that the US is willing to use force to protect maritime trade routes. It tells Russia that America hasn't abandoned its global security commitments despite the strain of supporting Ukraine. It tells allies that the United States will show up when it matters. These strategic messages are sometimes more important than the immediate tactical results. However, there's a cost to these commitments. The US military is stretched. Deployments are long and frequent. Equipment wears out faster. Budgets are strained. Recruitment is challenging. Every ship in the Red Sea is a ship that can't be somewhere else. China watches American naval deployments carefully, calculating when the US might be overextended. This is the burden of global leadership, the constant balancing act of managing multiple commitments simultaneously. The media coverage of Operation Prosperity Guardian was surprisingly limited given its importance. Major news outlets reported on it sporadically, usually after dramatic incidents. But the day-to-day reality of the operation, the tireless work of the sailors, the economic impact, the diplomatic maneuvering, all of this received less attention than it deserved. Perhaps people had crisis fatigue. Perhaps the complexity of the situation made it hard to cover in sound bites. Whatever the reason, this operation represents a significant chapter in American military history that many people know little about. Looking forward, several scenarios could unfold. Best case, diplomatic efforts eventually succeed. The Houthis agree to stop attacks in exchange for some face-saving concessions. Shipping fully returns to normal. The coalition transitions to a smaller monitoring force. This scenario requires compromise on all sides and a resolution to the broader Yemen conflict, making it challenging but not impossible. Middle scenario, the current stalemate continues. Occasional attacks happen. The coalition intercepts most of them. Some shipping avoids the area. The situation becomes the new normal, a low-level conflict that persists for years. This is exhausting but manageable, the kind of frozen conflict that has become common in our era. Worst case, escalation. A successful Houthi attack causes mass casualties. The US responds with overwhelming force. Iran gets pulled in more directly. Regional war erupts. Oil prices spike. The global economy suffers. This is the nightmare scenario that keeps military planners awake at night. So far, all parties have shown enough restraint to avoid it, but the danger is always present. What can we learn from Operation Prosperity Guardian? First, global trade is more fragile than most people realize. A relatively small rebel group in one of the poorest countries on Earth was able to disrupt trade routes carrying trillions of dollars of goods. The interconnected global economy creates vulnerabilities that can be exploited by determined adversaries. Second, military technology is advancing rapidly, but so are the threats. The Houthis acquired sophisticated weapons that would have been available only to major militaries just a decade or two ago. Proliferation is a serious problem, and it's getting worse. Defensive systems must constantly evolve to keep pace. Third, international cooperation is both essential and difficult. The coalition worked relatively well, but the absence of some key players was notable. Building and maintaining coalitions requires patient diplomacy and sometimes uncomfortable compromises. Not every nation will share America's priorities or appetite for risk. Fourth, there's no purely military solution to these conflicts. Operation Prosperity Guardian could protect ships and degrade Houthi capabilities, but it couldn't solve the underlying political problems in Yemen. Military force can buy time and create space for diplomacy, but lasting solutions require political agreements. Fifth, the human dimension matters most. Behind every military operation are real people making sacrifices. Sailors missing their families. Merchant mariners risking their lives. Civilians in Yemen caught in the crossfire. Any analysis that forgets these human costs is incomplete and ultimately hollow. As I bring this story to a close, I want you to remember that Operation Prosperity Guardian is still ongoing. Right now, as you listen to these words, American sailors are standing watch in the Red Sea. They're monitoring radar screens, maintaining weapons systems, coordinating with partners. They're doing the unglamorous, exhausting, essential work of protecting global commerce and upholding international norms. This operation may not have the drama of past American military interventions. There are no beaches to storm, no cities to liberate. But in many ways, that makes it more important, not less. It represents the kind of sustained, patient, difficult work that international security requires in the 21st century. It's not about glory. It's about showing up, doing the job, and making a difference even when nobody's watching. The Red Sea today is more secure than it was in December 2023, but the threat hasn't disappeared. The Houthis remain defiant. Regional tensions continue to simmer. The economic stakes remain enormous. This story isn't over, and its final chapter hasn't been written yet. But what we know for certain is this. When global trade was threatened, when the international community needed someone to step up, the United States Navy answered the call. Alongside brave partners from around the world, American sailors put themselves in harm's way to protect ships they'd never seen, carrying cargo they'd never touch, for people they'd never meet. That's what service means. That's what commitment to something larger than yourself looks like. Operation Prosperity Guardian reminds us that freedom isn't free, and neither is the global commerce we all depend on. Every time you buy something made overseas, every time you benefit from international trade, remember that somewhere, someone is working to keep those supply chains safe. They deserve our gratitude, our support, and our understanding. The challenges we face as a global community are complex and multifaceted. Military power alone won't solve them, but sometimes military power is necessary to prevent bad situations from becoming catastrophic. Finding the right balance between strength and diplomacy, between defending principles and avoiding unnecessary conflict, is the eternal challenge of statecraft. As we look to the future, the lessons of Operation Prosperity Guardian will shape how we respond to similar crises. The tactics developed here, the technologies refined, the diplomatic relationships strengthened, all of this will matter the next time a critical maritime route is threatened. And there will be a next time. Geography and geopolitics ensure that. Thank you for taking this journey with me through one of the most important but underappreciated military operations of our time. Remember the sailors. Remember the merchant mariners. Remember that security and prosperity are linked, that global trade requires global security, and that sometimes the most important victories are the ones that prevent disasters rather than respond to them. Operation Prosperity Guardian continues its mission. The watch goes on, and free peoples everywhere owe a debt of gratitude to those who stand the watch.